Welcome to Life Stories, where we share heartfelt tales of love, resilience, and second chances. Today's story begins with an unexpected mistake: a woman who sits at the wrong table on a blind date, only to find herself drawn into a connection that changes her life forever. Through laughter, betrayal, and redemption. This is a journey about trust, forgiveness, and the transformative power of love. Don't miss this inspiring tale that proves the best things in life often come from the most unexpected moments. Like, comment, and subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's story. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware filled the air of an elegant restaurant nestled in downtown Chicago. The lighting was warm and inviting, with a subdued glow that made every detail feel special, the sort of place where every plate was a work of art. And every guest seemed to radiate effortless confidence. But for Olivia Carter, confidence felt like a distant dream. As she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window, a twinge of self-consciousness gripped her. Her vintage dress, a thrift store find, looked passable, but she couldn't help but notice the scuff marks on her shoes. She took a deep breath, clutching her phone tightly in her hand, willing herself to step inside. Her best friend, Sarah, had arranged the blind date, insisting it was time Olivia put herself out there. But the butterflies in her stomach felt more like a storm. Determined not to disappoint Sarah, she mustered the courage to enter. Table S, she murmured under her breath, scanning the room with nervous energy. Her heart pounded as her eyes landed on a sharply dressed man sitting alone at a table near the back. His dark hair was neatly styled, and he seemed engrossed in his phone. That must be him, Olivia thought, her breath catching as she forced a bright smile onto her face. Approaching the table, she straightened her posture and introduced herself. "Hi. You must be Kevin. I'm Olivia. Nice to meet you." The man looked up, startled, his brow furrowing ever so slightly. For a moment, he seemed unsure of what to say. But then he smiled faintly. Hi. Taking his initial confusion as shyness, Olivia quickly slid into the seat across from him. Her nerves were still jangling, but she forced herself to keep talking. "Oh, I know this is awkward. Blind dates are always a bit weird, right? Sarah told me you might be a little quiet. So don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." The man hesitated, as though he was about to say something. But instead, he smiled again, this time with a touch of curiosity. There was something in Olivia's earnestness that disarmed him. He leaned back in his chair, deciding to play along. "Right. Blind dates are definitely something else," he said, his tone light. Relieved by his response, Olivia laughed nervously and took a sip of water. "Tell me about it. Sarah's been trying to set me up for months. But between work and, well, life, I've been avoiding it." "Work?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. His interest piqued. "I'm a waitress," Olivia admitted, fiddling with the edge of her napkin. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them. Anyway, enough about me. What do you do?" The man hesitated again, choosing his words carefully. "I work in tech." "Tech? That's cool. Like coding and apps and stuff?" Olivia asked, her eyes lighting up. "I'm terrible with computers." "Something like that," he replied, his faint smile widening as he observed her genuine curiosity. Despite the initial awkwardness, the conversation began to flow naturally. Olivia shared stories about her long shifts at the diner, her struggle to balance rent payments, and her dream of one day opening her own art studio. Her words tumbled out like a stream, unguarded and honest. The man, Ethan Reynolds, though she didn't know his name yet, found himself captivated. Olivia's straightforwardness was refreshing, a stark contrast to the polished personas he was accustomed to in his high-powered world. "You're not what I expected," Olivia said suddenly, her voice thoughtful. "Oh, what were you expecting?" "Well, Sarah said you were reserved, she admitted, her cheeks flushing. But you're really easy to talk to. Ethan chuckled softly. You're easy to talk to, too. The compliment made Olivia smile, her nerves finally beginning to ease. She was about to ask him more about his work when her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a message. Hey Olivia. Where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you. Kevin. Her heart sank as the words registered. Slowly, she looked up, her face turning crimson. You're not Kevin, are you? Ethan's faint smile faltered, guilt flickering in his eyes. No, I'm not. The realization hit Olivia like a wave, leaving her stomach churning with embarrassment. She scrambled to her feet, stammering. Oh my God. I am so sorry. This is so humiliating. I didn't mean to. Wait. Ethan said, standing as well. It's okay. Really. But Olivia was already grabbing her coat, her face burning as she bolted for the door. Ethan watched her leave, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had intended to correct her from the start, but something about her openness had drawn him in. Now, as he sat back down, he found himself wondering if he would ever see her again and why the thought of not seeing her bothered him so much. That night, as he stared out at the glittering Chicago skyline from his penthouse apartment, Ethan couldn't stop replaying their conversation. Olivia was unlike anyone he'd ever met. She didn't know who he was or the wealth he represented, and that made her authenticity all the more rare. For the first time in years, Ethan felt curious, genuinely curious about someone. And that realization stayed with him long after the city lights dimmed. The next morning, Olivia sat at her tiny kitchen table, absent-mindedly stirring her coffee while recounting the humiliating events of the previous night to her best friend, Sarah. So, let me get this straight, Sarah said, barely stifling her laughter. You had an entire conversation with some random guy, thinking he was Kevin, and then bolted when you realized your mistake. Olivia groaned, burying her face in her hands. Yes, and he was so nice about it, too. He even stood up to stop me from leaving. But I was too mortified to stay. Well, Sarah teased. Sounds like you accidentally hit it off with the wrong guy. Maybe it's a sign? Olivia shot her a look. A sign of what? That I'm an idiot. Sarah shrugged, a mischievous grin playing on her lips. That maybe this Ethan guy wasn't the wrong guy after all. His name wasn't even Ethan. Olivia muttered. I never got his name. Across the city, Ethan Reynolds sat at his desk, scrolling through emails with little interest. He wasn't sure why he couldn't stop thinking about Olivia. Maybe it was the way she had talked about her life with such unfiltered honesty, or the way her laughter had lit up the dull monotony of his day. Either way, he knew he couldn't let their strange encounter end so abruptly. Claire, he called to his assistant, who was busy organizing his day's schedule. Yes, Mr. Reynolds. I need you to clear my afternoon, he said, his tone decisive. Claire raised an eyebrow. Anything in particular I should know about? Not yet, Ethan replied, already picking up his phone. Olivia was in the middle of her shift at the diner when her phone buzzed. Wiping her hands on her apron, she glanced at the screen and froze. Hi Olivia. This is Ethan. I was the guy at the restaurant last night, the one you mistook for Kevin. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd really like to see you again. Coffee? Maybe. Her heart skipped a beat as she reread the message. She showed it to Sarah later that evening, her voice a mix of disbelief and nerves. What do I do? You say yes. Obviously, Sarah replied. What's the worst that could happen? With a deep breath, Olivia typed back, okay. Coffee sounds nice. The cafe Ethan chose was tucked away from the bustling streets of downtown Chicago. Its warm, inviting atmosphere a far cry from the elegance of the restaurant they had first met in. When Olivia arrived, she spotted him immediately. This time, he was dressed casually, in a button-down shirt and jeans, blending in with the laid-back vibe of the place. "Hi," she said tentatively, sliding into the chair across from him. "Hi," Ethan replied, smiling warmly. "Thanks for meeting me." Olivia shrugged, trying to play it cool. "I figured I owed you an apology for running out like that." "No apology necessary," Ethan said sincerely. "Honestly, I'm glad you did. Otherwise, I might not have had a reason to text you." Their drinks arrived, and the conversation began to flow as easily as it had the first time. Ethan asked about her art, her family, and her dreams, listening intently as she spoke. Olivia, in turn, found herself asking about his work. "So, tech," she said, resting her chin on her hand. "What exactly do you do?" Ethan hesitated. "Startups. Mostly," he replied vaguely. "That sounds complicated," Olivia said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "It can be," he admitted, his smile faint but genuine. As the afternoon wore on, Olivia felt her initial nervousness give way to a surprising sense of ease. Ethan wasn't like the polished, overly confident men she had met before. There was a humility to him, a quiet thoughtfulness that made her feel seen and heard. Ethan, on the other hand, found himself captivated by Olivia's passion and resilience. She spoke about her mother, whose health struggles had inspired her to work tirelessly, and her sketches, which she dreamed of turning into a full-time career. "You're incredibly resilient," he said, his admiration genuine. Olivia laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Resilient or stubborn? Take your pick." When they parted ways that evening, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Olivia was someone worth knowing. But as he returned to his penthouse, a gnawing guilt crept in. She didn't know the full truth about who he was, and the longer he waited to tell her, the harder it would be. For now, though, he told himself that this connection, however fragile, was worth holding on to. A few weeks passed, and Olivia and Ethan continued to meet. Coffee turned into strolls through her favorite park, evenings spent sketching, and even occasional grocery shopping trips that left them laughing in the cramped aisles of her neighborhood store. Their connection deepened with every encounter. But Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was holding something back. One evening, after a particularly long shift at the diner, Olivia flopped onto her couch, scrolling through her phone. Her eyes landed on a headline: "Ethan Reynolds, the elusive tech mogul changing the game." Her brow furrowed as she clicked the link. The article featured a photo of a sharply dressed man with dark hair, his confident posture unmistakable. Olivia's heart began to race. The resemblance was uncanny. "Sarah," she called, her voice shaky. Sarah wandered into the living room, a cup of tea in hand. "What's up?" Olivia thrust her phone at her friend. "Does this look like Ethan to you?" Sarah studied the screen for a moment, her eyes widening. "Oh my God. Liv, it is him. Ethan Reynolds is, like, a billionaire. Why didn't you tell me you were dating a tech mogul?" Olivia's stomach churned. "Because I didn't know. He said he worked in tech, but I thought he meant startups or coding. Not this." Her mind raced as memories of their conversations flooded back. Ethan had always been vague about his job, quick to deflect the subject back to her. Now it made sense why. "Liv," Sarah said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You need to talk to him." The next evening, Olivia found herself at a charity gala in downtown Chicago. She had volunteered to help organize auction items, but her mind was elsewhere. The grand ballroom buzzed with energy, guests milling about in elegant attire. A ripple of excitement spread through the crowd, drawing Olivia's attention to the entrance. There he was, Ethan Reynolds. His tailored suit and confident stride commanded the room. The event organizer approached him, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice filled with admiration. "We are honored to welcome our esteemed guest of honor, Mr. Ethan Reynolds, whose generosity has made this event possible." The applause was deafening. But Olivia barely heard it. Her world tilted. And her hands trembled as she processed the reality of who Ethan truly was. She waited until the event slowed down before approaching him. Ethan spotted her first, his expression softening when their eyes met. "Olivia," he said, stepping toward her. "I didn't know you'd be here." "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but cold. Ethan led her to a quiet hallway outside the ballroom. The grandeur of the venue contrasted sharply with the tension between them. Olivia crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "So," she began, her tone clipped. "You're Ethan Reynolds. Care to explain why you pretended to be someone else?" Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean to lie to you. When we first met, it was an accident. You thought I was someone else. And I liked how easy it was to talk to you. For once, someone didn't see me as a dollar sign." Olivia's jaw tightened. "So you decided to keep playing pretend? Let me fall for someone who doesn't even exist?" "No," Ethan said quickly, desperation creeping into his voice. "Everything I said, everything we shared, it was real. I just didn't know how to tell you the truth without losing you." "You mean without shattering the illusion?" Olivia shot back, her voice rising. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I trusted you, Ethan. I thought you were different." "I am different," he insisted, his voice breaking slightly. "Olivia, you're the only person who's ever seen me for who I am, not what I own. I didn't want to lose that." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them back, shaking her head. "You already have." Ethan's heart sank as she turned and walked away, her steps quick and resolute. He reached out as if to stop her but froze, realizing there was nothing he could say to fix what he had broken. That night, Olivia sat in her room, staring at her sketches but unable to focus. Her mind was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness. Sarah knocked softly on the door before poking her head in. "Hey," she said, her voice gentle. "You okay?" Olivia shook her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. "No, not really." Sarah sat beside her, pulling her into a hug. "Do you want to talk about it?" After a long pause, Olivia whispered, "I don't know if I was falling for him or the version of him I thought I knew." Sarah hugged her tighter. "Whatever it was, you deserve someone who's honest with you. Don't settle for anything less." As Olivia lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, she resolved to protect her heart. Ethan Reynolds might have been charming and kind, but the betrayal cut too deep. For now, she needed to focus on herself and leave Ethan and his lies behind. Ethan sat in his penthouse, the city lights sprawling before him like a sea of diamonds. Usually, the view brought him peace, a reminder of all he'd achieved. Tonight, it only reflected the emptiness in his chest. Olivia's words replayed in his mind, "You already have." He had let her down, and the weight of it was crushing. Olivia wasn't like anyone he'd ever met. She had seen him for who he was before the truth came out. Now that truth had shattered everything. Ethan knew he couldn't let things end this way. Claire, his assistant, knocked on the doorframe of his office. "Long night." Ethan glanced at her, his expression tired but resolute. "I need your advice." Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's new. What's the situation?" "It's about Olivia," he admitted, explaining everything: the mistaken identity, the connection they had built, and how it all came crashing down. "I don't know how to fix it," he finished, his voice tinged with regret. Claire studied him for a moment before speaking. "If she's as special as you say, you need to show her, not just tell her, how much she means to you. Words can only go so far. Actions speak louder." Ethan leaned back in his chair, her words sinking in. An idea began to form, and for the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. A week later, Olivia was walking home from work when Sarah intercepted her on the sidewalk, her tone urgent. "You need to come with me," Sarah said, tugging her arm. "What?" Why? Olivia asked. Confused. Just trust me. Sarah insisted, her eyes sparkling with mischief. They arrived at a small art gallery Olivia had admired for years. It was the kind of place she dreamed of showcasing her work one day. But it had always felt out of reach. Tonight, however, the gallery's sign read, Special Exhibit, The Art of Olivia Carter. Olivia froze, her heart racing. What is this? Go inside, Sarah urged, giving her a gentle nudge. Hesitantly, Olivia stepped through the door. The space was transformed into a haven of creativity, every wall adorned with her artwork, landscapes, portraits, whimsical sketches. Each piece was framed beautifully, lit with care, as though someone had taken the time to truly see her vision. In the center of the room, on a pedestal, was a single note. Her hands trembling, Olivia picked it up. Your art deserves the world. Just like you deserve honesty, love, and someone who sees you for who you are. Let me try again. Ethan. Tears welled in her eyes as she took in the scene. Every drawing, every sketch was hers, pieces she had poured her soul into, now on display as if they were masterpieces. Just then, Ethan stepped out from behind a partition. He was dressed simply in a grey sweater and jeans, his expression cautious but hopeful. Olivia, he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I couldn't let you go without showing you how much you mean to me. She turned to face him, her tears falling freely. You broke my trust, Ethan. I don't know if I can ever forget that. He nodded, his gaze unwavering. I know, but I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me. You're the only thing in my life that feels real. Olivia looked away, her emotions swirling. She loved him, she couldn't deny that, but trusting him again felt like a risk she wasn't sure she could take. Maybe, she said finally, her voice soft. Some things are worth a second chance. Ethan's eyes brightened, but Olivia held up a hand. I'm not saying it'll be easy, she added firmly, but I'm willing to try. A genuine smile broke across Ethan's face, one that reached his eyes. That's all I could ever ask for. As they stood in the gallery, surrounded by her artwork, the tension between them eased ever so slightly. But as Olivia left that evening, she glanced back once, her expression unreadable. Ethan watched her go, his heart heavy but hopeful. He had made his move, but the next step was hers. Now, all he could do was wait. 4 days after the gallery reveal, Olivia wrestled with her feelings. Her heart ached with a mix of longing and fear. She couldn't deny that Ethan's grand gesture had touched her deeply. No one had ever believed in her or her art in such a profound way. But the betrayal of trust still lingered like a shadow over her thoughts. One evening, as she sat by her bedroom window with a steaming cup of tea, Olivia reread the handwritten note Ethan had left at the gallery. Let me try again. His words echoed in her mind. A plea not for forgiveness but for the chance to prove himself. She sighed, setting the note aside. Why does this have to be so complicated? She murmured to herself. The next morning, after much deliberation, Olivia sent Ethan a message. Coffee? The cafe they chose was the same one where they had met after the blind date mix-up. This time, Olivia felt a nervous but steady resolve as she walked in. Spotting Ethan at their usual table, she approached him slowly. Hi, she said, her voice steady but guarded. Ethan stood, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. Hi. They sat down, silence hanging between them like a fragile thread. Finally, Olivia broke it. I've spent the past few days thinking, she began, her tone measured. And I realized something. I don't need grand gestures, Ethan. I don't need you to prove anything with money or galleries or gifts. I just need honesty. Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on hers. You have my word, Olivia. No more secrets. No more lies. Just me. For as long as you'll have me. She studied his face, searching for any trace of doubt or insincerity. All she saw was earnestness. Slowly, she nodded. Okay, let's try again. Relief washed over Ethan's face. And for the first time in weeks, a genuine smile broke through his guarded exterior. Months passed, and their relationship blossomed. This time, it was built on trust and understanding. Ethan supported Olivia's artistic dreams, not with his wealth but with his unwavering encouragement. They spent weekends sketching in her favorite park, cooking simple meals in her tiny apartment, and sharing stories about their vastly different worlds. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when Olivia's doubts resurfaced, and Ethan had to remind her, through his actions, that his feelings were real. Similarly, Ethan had to navigate his own fears of being truly vulnerable, letting someone into his life in a way he never had before. One day, as they sat together in her apartment, Olivia hesitated before speaking. "There's something I want to show you." Ethan watched curiously as she retrieved a folder from her desk. Inside were sketches she had been working on for months, a series she planned to submit to a local art competition. "These are incredible," Ethan said, marveling at the intricate details and emotional depth of her work. "You're going to win." Olivia laughed softly, her cheeks coloring. "I don't know about that, but I want to try." With Ethan's encouragement, she submitted her portfolio. Weeks later, she received the news that her work had been selected for the competition's main exhibit. The pride in Ethan's eyes when she told him made her heart swell. As they celebrated over dinner, Olivia reached across the table to take his hand. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said sincerely. "Yes, you could," Ethan replied, his voice filled with admiration. "You've always had it in you. You just needed someone to remind you." The evening felt like a turning point, a moment where Olivia realized just how much Ethan had come to mean to her. A year later, the gallery that once showcased Olivia's art became her own. With Ethan's guidance and her relentless determination, she turned it into a haven for young artists, offering them the space and support to pursue their passions. At the grand opening, the gallery buzzed with excitement. Friends, family, and supporters admired the pieces on display, many of which were created by Olivia and her mentees. Ethan pulled her aside as the evening drew to a close. "Can I borrow you for a moment?" he asked, a playful glint in his eyes. "You already have me," Olivia replied with a smile. Ethan led her to the center of the gallery, where the crowd quieted as he turned to face her. "Olivia Carter," he began, his voice clear and steady. "You sat at the wrong table that night. But from that moment on, I knew you were the right person for me." Soft murmurs of delight rippled through the room as Ethan reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box. "I love you for your strength, your kindness, and the way you see beauty in everything and everyone," he continued. "You've changed my life in ways I never imagined. So, Olivia Carter, will you marry me?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she laughed softly, wiping her cheeks. "Only if you promise no more secrets." Ethan grinned, his voice unwavering. "I promise." She nodded, holding out her hand. "Then yes." Their wedding was a small, intimate ceremony held in the gallery, surrounded by Olivia's art and the people who had supported their journey. Together, they turned the gallery into a place of creativity and community, blending their shared dreams into a lasting legacy. As they danced under the warm glow of the gallery lights, Olivia leaned in and whispered, "I'm glad I sat at the wrong table." Ethan pulled her closer, his smile soft. "It was the best mistake either of us ever made." Their story became a testament to the transformative power of trust, forgiveness, and love, a reminder that even the most unlikely beginnings can lead to something extraordinary. As the evening drew to a close, Olivia and Ethan stood side by side in their gallery, surrounded by love, art, and the community they had built together. Their journey had been far from perfect, marked by mistakes, heartbreak, and the courage to begin again. But it was those very struggles that made their love stronger, a love born from trust, forgiveness, and shared dreams. Their story reminds us that sometimes life's most beautiful moments stem from unexpected mistakes. When two hearts are willing to fight for each other, even the most unlikely beginnings can blossom into something extraordinary. Thank you for watching this heartfelt tale of resilience and love. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring videos that celebrate the power of second chances and the beauty of the human spirit. See you in the next story.